So we work with our department quite a bit here, and I created my accounting department. Now, for the application we're building, we might need departments, of course, but we might need more information for the specific types of departments. We might have an IT department, which has an ID, which has a name, which has employees, but which also has administrators, something which only the IT department has, for example. We might have the accounting department, which might also have an ID, a name, and employees, but it might also have, let's say, reports, an array of reports it generated, and so on. So we might have some base properties and also methods, which all departments should have, but then we might have specialized versions of these departments with their own specific properties and methods, which only that department might have. And inheritance can help us implement something like this. So how can we utilize inheritance here? Well, we have our class department. Now let's create these specialized departments. So here we could have a class IT department. And in this class here, I want to utilize the name and the ID and the employees of the general department, but I want to add my own features. Now we can inherit the department class by using the extends keyword here, and then the class we want to inherit. In this case, that's department. Now important, you can only inherit from one class, so you can't inherit from multiple classes if you would need that. So now here, I'm inheriting from department, and one consequence is that if I now create an IT department here, I indeed can call it like this with this kind of constructor, even though the IT department class is empty. If we save that, we indeed see it works as before, because when we inherit from another class, the class which inherits automatically gets everything the base class, department in this case, has, including its constructor. So as long as we don't add a dedicated constructor for this inherited class, so for the subclass, the base class's constructor, so this constructor, is automatically used when we instantiate our subclass. So we in the end magically call the base class constructor with the arguments we're passing here. Now we can add our own constructor though by adding constructor here in IT department, and now you see I'm getting errors. For one, we now of course should accept the data we're getting here, though we could argue the name should not be something we need to pass in here, and it shouldn't also be accounting. But instead here, the name of the department, since it's the IT department class, can always be IT. I still want to accept my ID though, but now I want to essentially forward that, just like the fixed name, IT, to the constructor of department. And for that we have a special keyword we can, and in this case we have to use, and that's super. Whenever you add your own constructor in a class that inherits from another class, you have to add super in the inheriting class, and you have to execute it like a function. Super here calls the constructor of the base class, so department's constructor in this case. And now therefore super takes the arguments of that parent class constructor, the ID and the name. So here I can forward ID, so ID which I'm getting here is just passed to super, and I can hard code a value for the name, like IT. So this will now call the constructor of the base class from inside the subclass. Now important, you have to call super first in your constructor before you do anything with the this keyword. So if you plan on assigning any other special properties here, you have to do that after calling super. And indeed, I want to add my own special properties here. We could add our admins here, let's say as a private, or as a public actually, as a public property, admins. And that should be an array of strings, let's say. Well, then I don't want to forward this to my base class because the department class doesn't want any administrator data. Instead, I want to store this in a property of IT department. So here we can then add admins as a field, which takes a couple of administrators, and store admins in there, or because I'm using public in here, I'm already using that shortcut where a property of the same name will be created and the data we feed into this argument is stored in that automatically created property. Still, to make it clear that super has to be called first, I'll take the longer route, add admins here like that, and then here say this dot admins equals admins. Again, the shortcut would be shorter. I'm doing this here to show and make it really clear that if you are using something that uses the this keyword, you have to do that after calling super. And with that, if we save that, I'm getting an error because I'm not passing in any admins. So let's do that here. Max is the only admin I'm passing in here. Now we can save that and compile that without errors. And now here, indeed, we see our department here. It now has the name IT. And if we console log the entire department, and we maybe also rename this from accounting to IT, and I then console log IT here, of course, renaming that was optional, just makes more sense given that we're building an IT department here. Now that I console log the entire department, we indeed see we got admins, but we also got employees and everything which I set up in my department class here. So that's inheritance in action, a very useful feature, because now, of course, we can also create our accounting department here by extending department. And there we could then add our accounting specific things. So we can still use a constructor here, and now maybe with the shortcut, accept a couple of reports here, which might be a private property. And then we have add report, which takes text, which should be a string. And then we reach out to reports here and push text as an item into the report. And maybe we also have get reports here, and there we just console log this reports, or we name it print reports, therefore makes more sense. And now we would have a very special version of a department with two methods, which the base department doesn't have, and with the extra property, which the base department doesn't have. And still we get everything from the base department. The name, which I'll set to accounting here, and the ID, which we also forward to the base department constructor. And so with that, down there, if we create our accounting here with new accounting department, we can feed in our ID and then our reports. Let's say that's an empty array initially. Then we can call add report, something went wrong. Never that good, of course, in the accounting, I guess. And then we can also print our reports here like that. And with all of that, it compiles just fine. And we get the reports here, and we see the IT department, for example, wouldn't have any reports. The accounting department does, because of inheritance, where we inherit certain features and add our own features.